What I think can be done to improve drug development is to increase the interaction. So I've mentioned a number of initiatives that Alzheimer's Research UK are leading, such as the Dementia Consortium and the Drug Discovery Alliance, that bring academics and pharma together. But we need to collaborate and share on a much wider basis, even things like data sharing. You know, we've got a lot of evidence for how the disease changes, and a lot of evidence that we're using for early detection has been obtained from these longitudinally phenotyped cohorts. So these are cohorts of people that somebody had the foresight to start looking at almost at birth. So some of these cohorts are 70, 72 years old, and in fact I think some of the Scottish cohorts are even older, and they've been phenotyped all the way through. So there is a tremendous amount of information in those cohorts that could be so useful, not only for early detection, but for really understanding disease mechanisms as these people move forward to disease, and for lots of other things. But the data isn't shared very effectively. Now some of that is due to, you know, lack of resource for data managers to really help share. Some of that is about the consent. So, you know, if you started one of these studies 70 years ago, you would never have asked anybody to sign consent to say that for research purposes your data can be shared with anybody. I mean, that wouldn't have happened. And actually going back to all of those people to re-consent is very difficult. But actually some of it is about the researchers, and you know, they want to publish first, or they want to use the data first, and I completely get that. But actually, you know, if there is some way of recognizing the researchers that have collected the data when everybody else starts to use it, then actually, and you change the incentives for people sharing data, then we could just get so much more out of the data that's already there. So I think bringing people together, increasing the collaboration between all different types of people and all different groups of people will be massively important. And actually, another area that, and I know it's trendy and everybody's moving into it, but I think it's massively important for dementia, and I think it's massively important for early detection, and we're working with these people, is the use of machine learning, and particularly across large data sets. So I think people or institutions like the Turing Institute and the data scientists and the informaticians and mathematicians in the Turing Institute, they're going to change how we look at everything, and they're going to change how we predict the progression of disease, and they're going to change how we're able to look back, because they will be able to model backwards as well. And then when we develop the models which help us predict using machine learning, they will just get more sensitive and more accurate and more predictive. So I think AI is coming into every other space, as is machine learning, and it is and will come into this space too. I think neurodegenerative diseases and dementia are a little bit behind in this, but it's coming, and so that will also change how we bring people together to really progress treatments, early detection, early diagnosis, disease understanding, and risk reduction and prevention. The reason I think that clinical trial design and the conduct of clinical trials isn't cutting edge yet, we just don't have the treatments to learn from. So it is changing. So the regulatory authorities, for example, are looking at conditional approval, and that's approval based on a surrogate marker rather than a full clinical endpoint. And that's where cancer has gone. So they are looking at dementia as dementia to bring in conditional approval. And if they do that, then there is the potential to conduct late-stage clinical trials in a very, very different way. But we've no effective treatments for disease progression. They're coming. I mean, the latest one, BAN 2401, you know, it's showing signs of efficacy in earlier stage disease, so they are coming. But it's really hard to change clinical trials without any data to help you change the design, remodel how you do things, use trial simulations. So it is moving, but we are very much behind. And one of those reasons as well is because we've received a lot less funding in the dementia space than, for example, Cancer Research UK is. Cancer research is obviously a huge unmet need, so I'm not criticising that, but we are still very much behind cancer in terms of research funding. So I think we just have to increase that funding, increase the impetus behind it. We really do need to change. It's the UK's largest cause of death at the moment, so, you know, and that's not going to change if we don't do anything about it. So we are behind in clinical trial design and how we conduct clinical trials, but I think we're starting to get there.
Why do you think that funding has been
So I think the funding has been lacking. It's a really vicious cycle. I think the funding has been lacking because nothing has been shown to be effective in terms of treatment. So pharmaceutical industry, it's kind of gone in waves. Pharmaceutical industry has spent a colossal amount of money bringing treatments forward that have then not shown benefit in phase 2B or phase 3 trials, so late stage clinical trials. And so you kind of shy away from that and people move out of it. But then there was a big push with the G8 Dementia Summit, and that started to bring funding back in, and particularly in the UK. So the UK government, for example, put funding into the Dementia Discovery Fund. The Dementia Discovery Fund was set up. So they started to look at different ways to bring funding back into the area. So I think we're now back on that trajectory upwards, but it just takes a long time to catch up and have that trajectory move at the speed we really need it to move. But based on that push, following the G8 Summit, the UK are actually leading the dementia area at the moment. I think we are using that funding for the right types of things, for understanding disease better, for early detection. So some of the real novel things that we want to move into the neurodegenerative disease and dementia area, I think the UK is leading and other countries are following on.